Hi there. I want to talk a little bit about what I expect from the Russian-American negotiations in Saudi Arabia when it comes to the Ukraine war. I think the first thing I want to say is Russian negotiation, in my experience, is a complete oxymoron. I I once saw a short video on YouTube. It said, I think the title of it was "How to Negotiate with Russians," and all the guy said was, "You don't." And I think that that's so accurate. You don't negotiate with Russians. I think that it's going to be an absolute mess. And here's what I expect to happen. The first tactic I expect that you'll see most of is the fatigue tactic, to wear down the American negotiation team, to tire them out before they even get to the point of negotiating anything. And this will be done through a variety of tactics. The first one I expect would be what Luigi wrote on his bullets: the tactics of the classic Health Insurance Corporation of America. Deny, defend, depose. They'll deny that they ever attacked Ukraine. They'll deny that they started the war. They'll deny that they're even in Ukraine because they're on, the territory they've already essentially annexed. It's Ukraine who's actually on Russian territory. Just all these little ridiculous tactics to wear out the will of the American negotiators. I expect they'll show up late. I expect they'll indulge in a bunch of formalities and have a really impenetrable facade in terms of the communication. I expect there's going to be a lot of interruptions. All done to wear out the American negotiators. I expect that Russia would dismiss the idea that Ukraine's even a state, going all the way back to Vasily the Great, or whoever was the first regional emperor of the ancient Slavic lands. I mean, they'll go all the way back and go on a huge history lesson just to wear out the Americans' willpower. I expect them to belittle Ukraine, to suggest that Zelensky is an illegitimate leader, and that, again, all kinds of ways to belittle the Ukrainians, to belittle what the Americans have offered, to ignore anything that the Americans actually say. Basically, Americans might say something and go on a long spiel in the negotiations. I expect that the Russians would then start talking as if the Americans had not said anything. It's just to exasperate them. I would expect that there'd be a lot of circular arguments. What I mean by that is like the old-time Western movies where you had the pioneers out on the prairie and they got attacked by the Native Americans, or they attacked the Native Americans, whatever, they got in a fight. And the pioneers would circle the wagons. And then the Native Americans would ride around on horses outside the perimeter, kind of beyond where the pioneers could hit them with a shot, and essentially use up their ammunition. I expect a lot of circular argumentation that doesn't get anywhere, going round and round and round in circles and never getting into the point, just to wear out the enemy. There's going to be a lot of beating around the bush. I expect that they would complain bitterly and play upon the empathy. So they're going to basically try to wear out the brain cells of the Americans and play on their better conscience, in terms of complaining about how badly they've been treated since the collapse of the Soviet Union, on and on and on, with a lot of bitter complaints. Another way to overwhelm the Americans would be by demanding the impossible in terms of results, and also there'd be a lot of this, demanding the minutia, little insignificant bullshit details that they want to spend a lot of time on. The thing about the Russians, in my experience, is they have one overwhelming quality that sets them apart, and that is their endurance. They can endure a meeting that goes on for hours and just love it and wear out the Americans. The Americans are going to need food. They're going to need sleep. They're going to need rest. They're going to need TV. The Russians don't need any of that bullshit. They'll just sit there and talk, go round and round in circles and just wear the Americans out. The Russians are going to bully the Americans through literal intimidation. They'll bring in somebody who's a really intimidating, imposing figure. I don't know, a security guard or somebody who just scares the shit out of everybody. Some great big son of a bitch that is simply intimidating. And they'll use it somehow, some way, to play on those kind of fears of the American negotiator. Guaranteed. They'll be overwhelmed with interruptions, details, and little bullshit. And then what will finally happen in the end is that Putin is going to play the trump card, if you will. He's going to try for triangulation, trying to split up the alliance between Europe and America, to play to Trump's ego, to talk all about how the election was stolen from him, and if he had only been there, then this war would have never happened, and all that, and how the only person that could truly understand Trump is Vladimir Putin. And play up that whole bromance thing, and play it up, and play it up, and play it up, and try to drive a wedge between the U.S. and Europe. That's my thoughts on it. I'd love to hear what other people's experience is negotiating with Russians or trying to compromise with Russians. In my experience, it's a complete shit show and very, very unproductive. I'd like to hear what people's opinions are as to what they think what's going to happen, and or if they've had experience trying to negotiate with Russians. I don't expect a very good result if you can read through the lines on this. That's all I've got. Bye-bye.